Hey, what's up everyone? Adam here with Bra We Got This, and today I want to bring you all another guide. This guide is on how to theorycraft and the process involved. So if you don't know what theorycrafting is, it's basically theorizing, creating, and testing character builds in games to see the optimal and most DPS you can do, how well it can support other characters, how much you can tank, and basically finding a build that is fun and caters to your playstyle in games. Now, theory crafting can also be something you can do in trading card games or any other sort of game that requires building anything with perks, decks, or abilities, but today we will be focusing on theory crafting in the Division 2. However, that does not mean that if you are watching this video that you can't take any useful tips away from it to implement it in your specific game that you are playing. So, to start off, I want to say that I know a lot of people just look up build videos and go with a build they find on the internet, and that is perfectly fine. I do that in games as well, but I thought I would make something for you guys that showed you a breakdown of how theory crafting, or basically to show you how I theory craft and how I make my own builds. Because theory crafting is a tiring process and can be super overwhelming to do, and that's why most people just look up something on the internet and copy and paste a build. But if you start creating your own builds, and when you complete your first build, it is very rewarding and super fun to complete. So if I have piqued your interest in wanting to learn a simplified process to creating your own builds, then continue on and watch the video. If not, thanks for making it this far in the video, and I appreciate it. So, my theorizing agents, how do you not make theory crafting so scary and overwhelming? Well, alcohol helps with the process. No, I'm totally kidding. Not saying that I don't sit back and drink a couple brews when I do theory craft, but seriously, what I like to do first is find out what type of role do I want to play in the game that I'm playing. So in the Division 2, there are mainly 3 roles to play: support, tank, and DPS. That is pretty standard across all games of this type. But it could vary based off games. So support is a role that usually heals or buffs teammates to help them in the battlefield. Tanks are typically self-explanatory. They tank damage and try to draw aggro from enemy AI. And DPS is damage and usually outputs the most damage of the team. So for this video, we are going to use my build that I theory crafted. It is not fully complete yet, but I have the crafted idea of what I want it to be. I'm just looking for a few more talents and things on certain armor pieces right now, but that is this long-range fire DPS build. So figure out the role you want to play, and that's the start. Once we have figured this out, the next step is to figure out, do you want to engage enemies preferably at close range, mid-range, or long range? And that's pretty, I think, common throughout all games of this type, but in the Division, it's definitely important. So you've got to figure that out. So I decided that I want to engage enemies at longer range because I want to sit back and basically snipe enemies. Because in a lot of games, I find that that sniping is really rewarding and fun. It also makes me feel like a badass. Once you decide how you want to fight in the Division 2, it's time to figure out what weapons you're wanting to use. So deciding this is obviously your choice. So pick weapons that cater to your playstyle, that you have fun using, and that work well with the range that you're deciding to fight enemies at. For example, if you're wanting to fight enemies close and personal, you probably shouldn't be running a sniper rifle. Instead, you should be focusing on finding an awesome SMG or assault rifle because they can handle close encounters. Now, to go over the typical weapons and the weapon usage by range in Division 2, if you aren't familiar, close range weapons tend to be the shotguns, SMGs, assault rifles. Mid-range weapons usually are assault rifles, and light machine guns, and marksman rifles sometimes, or always marksman rifles. And long range is typically marksman rifles, and some LMGs. Also in Division 2, you get 2 weapons to use and a sidearm along with a signature weapon. So we'll have to think about our second weapon we want to use, and we will discuss the signature weapon after that. So being that I'm going to be long-range DPS, there are enemies that will rush you, and there will be close-quarter encounters. So I need something that will be useful in close combat. So I decided to look for and build for an SMG as my second weapon. And to be honest, right now in the game, the sidearms are pretty useless in my opinion. I haven't found them helpful, and I rarely pull them out because they do take a significant amount of time to draw. So I just choose the best sidearm that I have. I do want to try create a build based off a sidearm, but I haven't had any luck yet. Now when it comes to weapons, the last choice you make is what signature weapon you choose. In Division 2, there are currently 3 specializations that you can choose from when you hit level 30. Sharpshooter, Survivalist, and Demolitionist. This is up to you what you choose here. Typically, the crossbow is more of a support role. Grenadier or Demolitionist, whatever you want to call it, could be DPS and tank, so it kind of has 2 roles there. And Sharpshooter is mainly a DPS and it has some support options as well. So based off the weapons you choose and the type of role you want to play, choose a specialization off of that. And it's worth noting that this is something that you can identify first, but you can also identify it after you figure out what armor you should use, which we will talk about here in just a few minutes. So once you've figured out the role you want to play, the range at which you want to fight, the weapons you want to use, it's time to figure out what armor you should go for. In the Division 2, there are brand sets. These are the core in-game sets currently, and they all have 1-piece bonuses for wearing 1 piece, 2-piece bonuses for wearing 2 pieces, and 3-piece bonuses for wearing 3 pieces. There's a Reddit user that made a brand set like tool online, and I will link that in the description, but I'm going to show you a screenshot of mine filled out. So as you can see, I'm wearing 3 pieces of a set and 1 piece of 3 different sets. Here's where you decide what abilities go best with what you're building. So if you're building support, maybe you should look for incoming healing, buffs to cooldowns for your skill heals, certain skill power buffs to specific skills you're using that supports your teammates so you can use them more. If you're a tank, maybe look for increased health and armor. Look for increased LMG damage and protection from elites. And for DPS, you could look for critical hit chance, critical hit damage, weapon damage, specific weapon damage, and damage to elites. These are all examples of things you could look for when building those specific roles. But ultimately, it's up to you what you want to choose. So for the sake of the video, again, we are using my build for an example. So I decided I want to go for crit chance and crit damage being my main thing. So I looked for sets that gave me those bonuses the best. So there are 2 sets that have crit chance and crit damage as their set bonuses, and they are Douglas and Harding and Wyvernware. The reason I went with Douglas and Harding is because I don't use the drone skill, so that bonus is useless to me. The 5% accuracy isn't a lot, but it's something I will still use, so I went with Douglas and Harding. Next, I have 3 slots to fill, so I want to look for more crit. Well, there isn't any 2-set bonus or 3-set bonus that I can wear that has both crit chance and damage, so let me look for a 1-set bonus. And boom, Wyvernware can get me that. And the beauty of using this tool is that when you select a piece of armor, it grays out armor you can't choose anymore because you already have that armor slotted. So it's an awesome tool that you should definitely check out. Next, the thing that stands out to me is SMG damage. And I see a 10% SMG damage, so I chose Sokolov Concern. I don't know if I said that right. But then the last thing that I want is damage to elites. That's probably the next best thing that I like. So there is a bonus with Badger Tough that I can still slot. So there you go. I have the armor I should be going after, and I can grind for it. Next, we have to choose our skills. Now, there are 8 skills with different variants in the Division 2. So you have to read through and see which ones sound fun and the ones that you think would benefit your build. For example, again, support may want the Healing Hive or Revive Hive skill, or it may want the skill that buffs combat efficacy for teammates. For tank, you may want to give the shield a chance, so you can draw aggro and tank the damage, or maybe a drone that deflects incoming bullets. For DPS, you may want a turret or chem launchers or even damage dealing drones. So using my build again, I wanted to build a fire DPS build. So I chose the fire variant of the turret and the fire variant of the chem launcher because I want my enemies to be burning. And that sounds really dark, but seriously, there are bonuses I get for that I will talk about soon. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you have a foundation and core of what your build should be now. So the fun part is next, grinding. That's why we all play these games, right? We love to grind. So grind for your weapons and gear. craft it, do whatever you have to do to get your gear. Once you start collecting your gear, it's time to differentiate what talents and attributes you want on them. Talents and attributes, Adam, you are telling me it gets more complicated. That's what I imagine you guys are saying right now in your head. Well, it doesn't get more complicated, at least once I'm done helping you through this part. These attributes and talents give you added bonuses and abilities to armor and weapons, so it's not a bad thing. But in Division 2, the game throws all of these things at you, and you have to make do with it. So I want to try to give you some practical things to help you not feel overwhelmed at this part. Again, there is an amazing Reddit user who has made a spreadsheet that has every weapon ability and talent, every armor talent and attributes, all attachments and known mods, and put it out to the public. I will link this as well in the description because this is very useful. It shows what talents can be on which armor pieces, same with weapons. All you have to do is look over that and look for interesting talents that you think will help your build. Also, any armor or guns you receive that have an interesting talent or really good attributes, favorite them and put them in your stash. The way you do that is pressing R on the keyboard. For console, I'm not sure how you favorite, but press R on the keyboard to favorite. That way you can go back and look at them and see like, hey, maybe I want to get a weapon or armor piece with that talent or attribute. And again, that spreadsheet is very helpful because it will show you if that talent can even drop on that armor piece or weapon, so you aren't wasting any time. So again, for my build as an example, some talents I was looking for was Killer. And so for Killer, it is this right here. So I'm just going to show this pistol. I don't have it on the current gun that I was looking for, but basically Killer is killing enemies with a critical hit grants 50% critical hit chance for 5 seconds. So with a high critical hit chance build and critical damage build, this is something that I think is very awesome and something that I can really use. Now it says requires 5 or more. I'll explain that here in just a second. So another perk that I'm looking for is called Ignited, and that is on my weapons. Ignited deals 20% damage to burning enemies, and that is why I was saying I'm doing a fire build, because I'm running 2 skills that deal fire. So I want my enemies to be on fire, basically so I get that 20% weapon damage buff. And then another perk that or you could perk or attribute, whatever you want to say, another one that I'm looking for, basically, and I have it right now on this Model 700, is Ranger. And this is every 5 meters you are from the target grants 2% weapon damage. And I've noticed that that is actually something that's been really cool and really effective, because you do deal tons of damage. And with the sniper rifle, that's a really useful perk, in my opinion. Now, the last talent that I'm also looking for is Obliterate, and that is depleting an enemy's armor grants 25% critical hit damage for 5 seconds. I like that because basically you can kill that enemy and then go to the next enemy and try to get the person's armor down really quickly, and I think that would work really well as well in my build. So these are all talents that help or support my build. So I want to use fire, like I said, and I want to be far away, and I want to crit a lot. So all 3 of the first 3 that I talked about support my build in different ways, overall increasing my DPS. And the Obliterate just adds to that because it gives me more critical hit damage. So as you can see, the talents that I'm choosing are things that can help my build in multiple ways. That is how you want to kind of choose when you look at talents on armor or on weapons. Now, briefly, there are ways to get talents from one piece of armor that you don't want on pieces of armor you do want. Same with guns. This is recalibration. This is a little janky right now. Here's like the recalibration station right now, and it's got a lady behind it. And so it's a little janky right now. They haven't gotten a lot of clarity, or they haven't given a lot of clarity on it. But I will be making a guide for this as well to help clear up some things, to hopefully help you guys understand how it all works. And the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to searching for your talents on your weapons armor are these requirements that you see here. So basically, there's talents that have requirements. In order to get this ranger talent, I have to have 4 or less yellow. I just call it yellow, but it's this skill thing in the pie chart right here. That's basically like skill power. If I don't have less than 4 or less, I won't get this perk on this weapon. Another one is, let's see, so if I go to my submachine gun, so this breadbasket, it says requires 5 or more of this like damage. The red is like offensive, the blue is armor and health, and the yellow is skill. So if I don't have 5 or more here, then I won't get this bonus as well. So in order to increase these things, a lot of the armor will possibly come with attributes. These attributes are what dictate how much this pie chart is taken up by the colors. So the more, like, if you want to go damage, offensive, you want a lot of red attributes for the most part, because that way you can get a lot of the perks that you want to be activated, because you'll have a higher, you could just say red pie piece, right? So you want to look out for armor and weapons that have those attributes on them. And again, there's ways to switch that out with recalibration, but it's something that is a little confusing right now. So again, I'm going to make a guide for that so you can kind of understand how that works. Now, the last thing to completing your build is deciding what mods and attachments to go on your weapons and armor. This one is pretty straightforward. For your armor, look for offensive mods if you're a DPS. Look for support mods for if you're a support. Look for defensive base mods for tank. With attachments with weapons, I looked for increased critical chance and damage for my weapons. You can basically kind of decide what you want to do there. But like, for instance, if I go to here, I'm getting plus 30% headshot damage with this scope right now. I don't want to choose things that give me less critical hit. Reload speed, I'm not too worried about. So I want to basically increase my damage, my critical hit chance. So try to find attachments that basically support what you're trying to do with your build. So the last thing to do is test your build. And one of the best ways to test your build is at the shooting range. They have the difficulties, so it shows you like harder enemies. So it shows you like your time to kill right here, TTK. So you have your easy, you have your normal, which shows like accuracy. You have this one that shows DPS and damage last hit, and then you have veteran, which shows DPS and damage last hit. So basically, it's a good indicator of how your weapons are doing and then how they feel when you shoot them. And then also just doing missions and events is another great way to test out your build to see if you like it and see if it's fun and everything like that. If it needs tweaking, don't be afraid of changing something. They also have loadouts in this game, so you can always revert back to a saved loadout that you had previously, so don't ever be afraid of changing stuff or tweaking things. But there you have it, everyone. I hope that this has helped you somewhat and make you feel a little more comfortable with making your own builds. I promise if you give it a shot, it will be really rewarding. So if you have any questions, you can comment and ask away. I will try to help you as best I can. You can also join my clan, the Brafia, on here, and we can do activities together. Other than that, everyone, make sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook and catch my streams on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/probably-got-this. Look out for more guides coming soon. But until next time, remember to have faith, be great, and I'll see you awesome people later.